So as far as a form layout goes, Bootstrap does apply display block and width 100% to all of the form controls by default, which means they are going to be stacked vertically and they are going to span the width of your screen. And obviously that can be changed. And the way that you would change it is you would use the grid layout. So you'd specify rows and columns. Bootstrap supports all your HTML5 input types. So if you remember text, password, date, color, telephone, URL, all of that is supported in Bootstrap. Bootstrap also supports input tags, text area, checkbox, radio, and select tags. So those are the different form controls that you can add. Now, to make your form look good, we typically use columns and we use margin commands and we use padding commands. Margin and padding commands are also used for titles to make those look good. And so in a title section on a page, you can add padding of 5, margin bottom of 4. So below this section, there's some space. And I also applied a shadow. Okay, so these are all different classes used for formatting. So margins are outside the box or the content area, just like they are in HTML. And so a lot of these codes make sense. I mean, if you just use M dash and a number 0 through 5, it's going to change all your margins. The bigger the number, the bigger the change. If you want to just do the top, it's MT dash and then the number. If you just want to do the bottom, it's MB dash and the number. But the right and the left are a little weird. And this is new in Bootstrap 5. So in Bootstrap 5, if you want to change the left, they consider that the start. So it's MS for start. And if you want to change the right-hand side, well, that's the end. So it's ME. Okay, and so instead of doing left and right, it's MS for left, ME for right. Padding works the same way. But remember, padding is within the element area. So it's just space around your text. There's padding at the top, padding at the bottom. This is all 4 sides. And then if you want it on the left, it is PS. And if you want it on the right, it is PE. As far as form elements themselves, there are input, select, and text area elements. Both the input and text area controls use a form control class. And so we can see this. Labels pretty much use a form label class. So you can see form label, form control, form label, form control. Okay, so you can kind of see how that looks. And then this is how it would look live online. Some additional labeling control classes that you can use. If you have a drop-down, you're going to use form select instead of form control. And then for labels, if you're dealing with a horizontal layout, you'll use call-form-label. And if you want to put the label inside the control, you can use form-floating. So this little example is using the layout with the label next to the form control. So how I got that is I used the grid and I specified rows. And then I've got the label, which I have in a column, a medium-sized column that incorporates the number 2. And then for the email, you can see I did a column size of 10. 10 and 2 is 12. Okay, and then we get down here and you can see that I've got another one, and I'm actually adding a bottom margin to these to put some space between them. But you can see I've got 2 and 10 again. And then for the last one, I've got 2 and 10. But the last one is a select. So for the form element itself, it's a select. Checkbox and radio elements have the same exact classes. Obviously, the difference is in a checkbox, you can turn on more than one, and a radio button, only one can be turned on. So the labels use form check label, and the elements themselves, element controls use form check input. So this is just a little code snippet showing you, and again, I'm using the grid system, and here I've got a row. And within that row, I have 2 additional rows specified. Within those 2 rows, I have 2 columns. Okay, and so you can see I've got form check label, and the label that's going to display is between the opening and closing label tag. And then I've also got the actual control that they can turn on and off. And so for the first one, these are radio buttons. And then the second one, it is a checkbox. But you can see that the classes are the same. And how this looks is something like that. Bootstrap does have its own styling for headings. But to use that styling, you have to say class equals heading 1. So let's take a look. Okay, so just putting a heading 1 here as your element is not going to give you that heading 1 Bootstrap style. You have to do class equal H1. So if I change this, and run it, okay, it has applied H1, and it actually looks like it's pulling in the class. That's super interesting. Let's see if H3 looks the same, because those usually are different. Yep, it looks like it's allowing you to use class, or it's smart enough to pick up that you have a heading tag and it applies the class automatically, which is good to know. In addition to the heading styles, we also have display classes. And these look a little different than the heading styles. Now you can see it's a little different font. So just for fun, we'll have display, heading 1 with display 1, and a heading 1 without it. And then we'll do a heading 1 with display 2. And we'll do a heading 2 and do a little comparison. Oh yeah, so this is the display 1 class, and this is heading 1. This is the display 2 class, and this is heading 2. So kind of a big difference in how they look. As far as colors go, Bootstrap does use contextual colors. Does that mean you're only limited to those colors? Of course not. You can still use CSS to colorize your page, but these are kind of built-in colors, and it is nice when you can use them. And so I think it is kind of self-explanatory. You would have class equal And if you want the background change, you'd have BG. And if you wanted the text change, you'd say text. Primary is this shade of blue. Success is the shade of green, and so on. Those same contextual colors are applied to buttons. Okay, and so we've got just a plain button and the default. They're both pretty boring. And then we get into the ones with the colors. For image formatting, there's 3 classes that you can use to adjust your image. Rounded actually rounds the corners. Circle, or rounded circle, is supposed to convert it into an actual circle. And thumbnail puts a little border around it, and it makes it look like a thumbnail. To adjust the alignment, if you want to left align, or the equivalent of floating on the left, it's float start. If you want the picture over on the right, it would be float end. And that doesn't look right. Hold on a second. I'm going to fix that. All right, that looks much better. I remembered to change the text here, but I forgot to change the text with the picture. So now it's all in sync. So it is float end to get it on the right side. And then if you want to center, it's kind of weird, but you use MXD block. And that exact code, MX auto, which is margins, and D block, that will center align any picture. If you want to change the responsiveness, you can use image fluid. That will make the graphic responsive. As far as text goes, text formatting and alignment, we kind of looked at text start and text end, or was float start and float end, but it's the same for text. Okay, so instead of align left, you're using text start. Instead of align right, it's text end. You can also center your text, make it lowercase, uppercase, or capital letters. Table formatting is kind of nifty in Bootstrap. For the table formatting, probably the most important thing that you have to remember is you have to have class equal table. And then after that, if you want any of the special table formats, it's just a space and then, table striped or table bordered. There are a lot of different table formats that you can pick from. And probably the easiest way for you to find them, I'll have to open one project here that has tables. Once you have Bootstrap installed, it's not hard to find the different tables. All right. All right, so here we've got table. And then if I do table dash, oh, watch, it's not going to work now. All right, we'll try this again here. All right, now it's working. So you get this little drop down. So you have to have table. Okay, and then you can have any of these choices. And you can do more than one. Okay, so I encourage you guys to play with this so you can kind of figure out what you like. Okay, and I did make some of these interactive, so you can kind of see how they work. For groups, you can create a group out of an unordered list. You can also do it with links or that type of thing. And so the key here is that you have a list group class, and then within that, you have list group items. Okay, and so by default, it's going to be vertical, but you can do your list group class and add list group horizontal. And then you can have all your list group items. And there are also colors that you can add. Okay, so it's list group dash item dash, and then you'll see there's just lists of colors that you can pick from. Okay, so this is an unordered list that I added it to, but you can see that you can pretty much do the same thing with links or any other type of thing that would fit in a list.